She had taken him in, raised him as her own, and given him everything she could, only for him to toss her aside without a second thought. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind of twilight where the city lights begin to hum, but the sky still holds a faint echo of the day. Cora stood outside her apartment door, house shoes on, a canvas tote bag slung over her arm. Inside were the usual groceries, a carton of milk, some fresh fruit, and a ready-made lasagna, still warm against her side. She leaned against the door, her door, and felt an unfamiliar resistance. The key didn't turn. She tried again, slower, then with more force, even turning the key upside down as if she might be holding it wrong. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. But it wasn't her grip that was the issue. It was the lock. It had been replaced. She knocked once, then twice, then a louder rap with her knuckles. Still holding the grocery bag, still wearing her comfortable green sweater that smelled faintly of warm cinnamon, still standing where she had lived for 20 years. Then the door cracked open. Leo's partner, Brenda, peered through the narrow opening, her eyes wide as if she'd been caught off guard. "Oh, hey, we weren't expecting you back yet." Cora blinked. "Why can't I get in?" Brenda hesitated. She glanced back into the apartment, then stepped out, pulling the door shut behind her. "I think Leo was going to talk to you about that." "Talk to me about what? You don't live here anymore." A heavy silence descended, like a blanket smothering a fire. Cora clutched her grocery bag tighter, her hand suddenly feeling useless and clumsy. A knot tightened in her chest. "What did you just say?" Brenda offered a quick, nervous smile, the kind people use to smooth over an awkward moment. "Look, it's just administrative stuff. Nothing personal. Leo said you agreed to sign the lease over." "I what?" "He said you signed some papers a few weeks back. Remember those documents on a coffee table?" Cora stared, and slowly a chilling understanding dawned. The forms, the way Leo had dismissed her questions, telling her it was just for renewals, that they needed to update things, that this would protect her interest if anything happened to her. She had trusted him. She had trusted her son. Now her hands trembled. Brenda didn't wait for more questions. She slipped back inside, mumbling something about calling Leo. The door closed again, locked again. Cora stood there for a full minute, then 5, then 10. Nobody opened the door again, and she didn't knock. She walked slowly down the hall, that lasagna still tucked under her arm. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she wasn't going back inside. But Leo hadn't just taken her apartment. He had taken something much deeper. And Cora was about to remember exactly who she was. Long before any of this, before the paperwork, before Brenda, before her own apartment door became foreign, Cora had been more than just a woman living alone. She had been a mentor, and not just to anybody, but to a young man no one else seemed to believe in. Back in 2003, Cora was working the late shift at the Community Outreach Center in the city's South Side. She was a counselor, tough but empathetic, a woman who had long since made peace with not having a traditional family after a series of personal setbacks. The loneliness was a shadow, invisible but persistent. And then one evening, she met Leo. He'd come in after a minor incident, barely 16 years old, quiet, wary, wearing a hoodie several sizes too big that smelled of stale cigarettes. His caseworker had simply dropped him off with the center and left. Cora didn't go looking to take anyone in, but sometimes life doesn't ask. Sometimes it just places a lost soul in your path and dares you to look away. Leo was withdrawn for the first few weeks, just clung to the edges of conversations, wouldn't make eye contact with anyone, wouldn't open up unless she was the one listening. Something about her steady presence made him feel secure, and that was enough. 2 months later, she arranged for his first placement with her. 6 months after that, he had a key to her apartment. Her colleagues thought she was crazy, a single woman in her late 40s taking in a troubled teenager with a history of minor infractions. "Cora, are you trying to save the whole world?" "No, just this one," she'd reply. Cora gave Leo everything she never had: a desk for his homework, home-cooked meals every night, art classes, guitar lessons, Saturday trips to the museum. He struggled with math. She found the best tutor. He had trouble expressing himself. She encouraged him to write. She taught him how to fix a leaky faucet, how to change a tire so he'd be self-sufficient. She made him write thank you notes after every kindness, and she never once missed a parent-teacher conference. But not everything was perfect. As Leo grew older, things shifted. By college, he started asking questions. Why do I feel like an outsider here? Why do people look at us differently? Why does everyone assume I'm adopted? She always answered with the same words, "Because you are. But that doesn't mean you're not mine." He never fully accepted it. After college, he grew distant. He barely came home, and when he did, it was always quick. An overnight visit, a brief dinner, a quick "Hey, Cora," before rushing out with his phone in his hand. But Cora never complained. She kept the lights on, kept his old room just the way he left it, kept believing that love, even quiet love, was enough. Then her longtime partner David passed, and suddenly Leo started coming around more. He was helpful at first, helping with bills, making repairs around the apartment, reminding her to take her supplements. He'd bring Brenda sometimes, and they'd sit on the balcony while Cora made tea and watched documentaries. She thought things were mending, but what she didn't know was that Leo hadn't come home to reconnect. He came to take inventory, and by the time she realized it, her name was off the lease, and her trust had been traded for convenience. But a mentor doesn't forget, and Cora was already remembering every sacrifice she ever made. Cora spent that night in her car. She parked it 2 blocks down from the apartment building, what used to be her home, in front of a row of older brownstones with worn steps and potted plants on the stoops. She didn't cry, not once, but her hands stayed locked at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, even after the engine was off. The lasagna sat untouched in the passenger seat, cold now, the plastic container slick with condensation. She stared out the windshield, her eyes fixed on nothing. Grief has a way of sitting heavy in your lungs, not just from losing people, but from realizing who they never were to begin with. When David passed 3 years ago from a sudden illness, Cora thought the pain couldn't cut deeper. He had been her anchor, a man of quiet strength, all substance. They met at a charity event, fell in love over shared volunteer work and late-night talks, and spent 15 years building a life that rested on compassion and understanding. But this pain, this betrayal, it had a different sting. The next morning, Cora went to the bank to check her accounts. Part habit, part necessity. It was almost ironic. The balance hadn't changed because Leo never touched that money, because Leo never even knew it existed. After David died, his family tried to contest the will. They claimed undue influence. But Cora had been through too much not to recognize the pattern. She pressed, filed counterclaims, consulted with an old lawyer friend, and 2 years later, she won a significant settlement no one thought she could: $7 million. She didn't tell a soul, not even Leo. She moved it into a separate trust under her maiden name, split across a handful of accounts. It wasn't out of paranoia. It was peace of mind, a secret, sacred thing. Because money changes people, and some things are better left under the radar. That day, sitting in the bank lobby with her shoulders aching and her spirit cracked in two, Cora realized something else. Leo didn't just betray her trust, he underestimated her. She may not have had the apartment anymore, but she had resources, she had knowledge, and she still had one weapon Leo had never learned how to use: patience. So she booked a modest room in a quiet guest house across town. Paid in cash. 3 nights, no questions. She needed a plan. But more than that, she needed to sit still and remember who the hell she was. She flipped through an old journal she kept in her bag, full of thoughts, contacts, and handwritten reminders to call her sister. At the back of it was a note she'd scribbled years ago, the day the settlement came through. Don't let money make you loud. Let it make you quiet. Let it buy you time. She smiled at the page. Leo thought he kicked her out, but he had no idea he just set her free. But freedom doesn't mean comfort, not yet. And Cora still had some fires to walk through before she rose again. The first time Leo put a stack of papers in front of her, it was a Sunday. Cora was sitting at the kitchen table sorting old photographs while a podcast played softly in the background. Her arthritis flared that day. A storm was coming. She could feel it in her joints, but she smiled through it. Leo had stopped by without calling first, and even though she didn't like surprises, she told herself maybe he missed her. He walked in wearing one of those sleek, modern jackets that looked expensive. Brenda followed behind him, barely looked up from her tablet. "Hey, Cora," he said, giving her a quick side hug. "We brought some papers." "Nothing serious, just stuff to help with the lease and the apartment. Getting things organized on the back end, you know." Cora furrowed her brow. "What kind of papers?" Leo pulled out a folder like a magician with a trick up his sleeve. Lease renewal, tenant transfer, some power of attorney language. We had it reviewed. Brenda's firm handles this kind of stuff all the time. Totally standard. Brenda chimed in from behind her screen, not looking up. "It's just a way to streamline things, Miss Cora. Avoid complications. You'd still have access to everything." "I didn't ask to streamline anything," Cora said quietly, her hands resting on a faded photograph. Leo chuckled. I know. That's why we're doing it for you. Look, if something happens to you, God forbid, it would be a mess to untangle the apartment and your name on all the documents. This just makes sure things stay in order." Cora stared at the paper. The letters swam a little. She didn't wear her reading glasses often. She hated how they left marks on her nose. Leo noticed. "Here," he said, handing her a pen. "I highlighted the signature lines. You don't need to worry about the rest. I already went over it with them." She hesitated. She wanted to say something like, "I should probably have someone look at this." Or, Why do you need power of attorney now? But Leo was her boy, her little boy who used to cling to her leg, the one who needed extra help with his studies, the one she stayed up with all night when he had a fever at 8 and refused to sleep without holding her hand. So she signed page after page. He even joked as she scribbled her name. "You're making history, Cora." She laughed once, just a soft exhale. The podcast ended, and she got up to make more tea. That moment stuck in her mind for weeks after. The smell of old paper and dust, the sound of the pen cap clicking shut, the smile on Brenda's face that felt just a little too knowing. She didn't know it then, but that afternoon was the last time she'd ever sit at that kitchen table feeling truly at home. The next visits were shorter. Leo started showing up with financial statements and business associates she didn't care to meet. He was always busy, always talking about investments, building equity, how her apartment was an asset waiting to be optimized. He started calling her Cora in front of Brenda. That was new. And one day, while she was tending to her small herb garden on the balcony, she overheard Brenda say, "Once we finalize this, we can finally get that penthouse downtown." That's when Cora started packing a small bag, just in case. She tucked away her old journal, her passport, the last photo she had of David, and her notebook with the banking information for the settlement she had never told Leo about. Her body didn't move as fast anymore, but her mind, it was still sharp enough to know when love had curdled. But Cora hadn't come this far just to watch everything she built disappear, not without reminding Leo whose name he'd signed away. The day Leo called her a guest in her own home, Cora didn't say a word. It was a Wednesday, sometime after lunch. She had just finished tidying the living room, a chore she still liked to do herself, even though her neighbor always teased her for it. Dust didn't care about age, and Cora believed in a clean home, no matter who was watching. Leo walked in, sunglasses still on, earbuds hanging around his neck. Brenda trailed behind, mid-conversation with someone over speakerphone. They didn't speak at first, just walked right past her, like she was invisible. Then Leo paused, turned around, and said casually, "Hey, next time you use the vacuum, can you empty it out? We've got people coming to see the place this weekend." Cora blinked. People? Agents, just to get a feel for the market, valuation. She stared at him. "You selling the apartment?" He chuckled like she had asked if he was moving to another planet. "Not yet. Just thinking ahead. Got to explore all our options, right?" She stood straight. "Our options?" That's when he said it. "You're a guest now, Cora. It's still your space, of course, but legally, well, you know how it is." Her hand tightened around the vacuum handle. She didn't say anything, didn't scream, didn't cry, just nodded once. That night, she packed her small bag for real. She didn't take much, just what she needed. That journal, her notebook, 2 outfits, 1 pair of comfortable shoes, and David's old watch, which she hadn't worn since he passed, but still kept in a little box by her bed. Leo didn't ask where she was going. Brenda didn't care. They had what they wanted, or so they thought. Cora checked into a small guest house on the other side of town, near a park and a library that always had interesting talks. The bed was firm when she sat down, and the window AC unit hummed steadily, but it was hers, and it was quiet. She sat at the tiny desk and opened her notebook. There was a number she had kept in there for 15 years. It belonged to a woman named Clara, who used to work at a legal aid clinic that helped older adults navigate housing disputes. Clara had helped her once when a neighbor tried to claim part of her balcony space. She dialed the number. It rang once, then twice. Disconnected. She sighed. Then she remembered Sam. Samuel Bellwether, David's friend from their college days, a lawyer, long retired but sharper than a tack, and twice as determined. She hadn't spoken to him in years, but she picked up the phone anyway. It rang 7 times before a gruff, sleepy voice answered. "This better be important?" Cora smiled. "Maybe it's both." Sam, "Yeah, it's me. I need to talk to you." But Sam didn't need much convincing because real friends remember when someone brings you soup after a long flu, and he'd been waiting for a call like this. Sam met her at a small cafe just off the main square the next morning, the kind of place that still served coffee in mismatched mugs and knew everyone's order. He looked older than she remembered, more lines around his eyes. But he still had that same keen gaze and straightforward manner that made people think twice before trying to pull one over on him. "You look tired," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. Cora smiled faintly. "Good morning to you, too." He took a sip of his coffee, black. No sugar, no cream, just like David used to. "All right," Sam said, setting the cup down. "Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. Don't soften it. Just lay it out." So she did. She told him about the forms Leo made her sign, the way he changed the locks, the guest comment, Brenda, the agents, the fake smiles. Sam listened without interrupting once. When she was done, he leaned back and let out a long sigh. He played you, tricked you, but he made one big mistake. "What's that?" "He forgot who raised him." Cora looked down at her napkin. "I signed the lease over, Sam." "Yeah, but signing under false pretenses, that doesn't make it legal, especially if you weren't fully informed or he misrepresented the documents." She raised an eyebrow. "You think we can take him to court?" Sam grinned. "Cora, I could take him to court in my sleep." She laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "I'm tired, Sam. I'm not trying to destroy him. I want my home, and I want to look at myself again and not feel like a damn fool." Sam nodded slowly. "Then let's not destroy him. Let's teach him something." They spent the next 2 hours going over everything. What she signed, what dates she remembered, the conversations she could recall. Cora had written most of it down in her journal anyway, even before she thought she'd need it. Habit of an old counselor. Document everything. Sam told her what to expect next, what kind of lawyer he'd connect her with, how they'd file a petition to investigate whether the transfer was fraudulent, and what to do if it escalated to court. Then Cora said something she hadn't told anyone else. "I've got money, Sam." He blinked. "You mean a little saved up?" "No, I mean real money. Settlement money from David's case. $7 million. Sam nearly dropped his mug. "Good heavens, I never touched it. Didn't want Leo knowing. Didn't want anyone knowing, really." Sam shook his head slowly. "You've been sitting on $7 million and letting this boy run circles around you?" "I didn't want money to change the way I loved him," she said barely above a whisper. Sam didn't answer right away, just stared at her, then reached across the table and touched her hand. "It didn't," he said. "He changed all on his own." Cora looked out the window at the city skyline in the distance. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she felt, worn, not defeated, but cracked, like something that had been dropped but refused to break. She turned back to Sam. "I want to do this right. No drama, no cameras, just my name back on my door. Sam nodded. We'll get it. But there was one last conversation Cora needed to have before the lawyers, before the hearings. One final attempt to speak, not to the man Leo had become, but the boy she remembered. Cora didn't call first. She knew if she did, he'd either hang up or have Brenda talk for him. So she just showed up. It was late afternoon when she pulled into the building's parking lot. The landscaping looked too manicured, like someone had tidied it just enough to impress a stranger, but not enough to show real care. Her herb garden was gone. She knocked once. Leo answered in workout clothes and a branded t-shirt, holding a protein shaker. His face tightened the second he saw her. Cora, what are you doing here? Cora stepped forward just enough that the safety chain separated them. I don't need much of your time. I just came to say something. He looked back over his shoulder, probably checking if Brenda was home, then sighed and stepped into the hallway. Look, if this is about the apartment, she raised a hand. Let me finish. He shut his mouth. I took you in when nobody else would. Not because I had to, and not because I wanted thanks. I did it because I saw a young man who needed guidance, and I gave it every ounce I had. Leo's eyes flickered, but he stayed quiet. I watched you grow. I gave up quiet nights, personal time, my own needs. I gave it all to you, and I never once made you feel like a guest in this life. She took a breath. Her throat was tight. And you repaid me with the signature and the changed lock. He rubbed the back of his neck. You signed, Cora. It wasn't like I forced. Don't call me Cora if you don't mean it. Silence. She straightened her shoulders. I'm not here to argue. Just to tell you I know what you did. And you should know. I'm not broke, never was. I've got enough money to buy this building 10 times over. Leo's face changed. First disbelief, then panic, then something like shame. I didn't know that. You weren't supposed to, she said, because compassion ain't a business and loyalty can't be bought. But now I know, and so do you. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I've already spoken to a lawyer. This will go where it needs to go. I just wanted to look you in the eye one last time before it does. Leo's hand dropped to his side. You're going to sue me? No, she said. I'm going to remind you what a real home costs. And with that, she turned and walked back to her car. No yelling, no begging, just a woman who finally remembered her worth. But lawsuits don't scare people like Cora. What scares them is seeing the person they underestimated rise stronger than ever. 3 months later, the apartment was empty. No furniture, no Brenda, no Leo. The new tenant, a young artist from out of state, said the place felt peaceful when she first walked in, like it had been cleansed of something, and it had. Sam had moved fast. The fraud petition passed through the court quicker than expected. The judge didn't even blink after reviewing the documents and testimony, said Cora had clearly been misled, and the transfer was under questionable, possibly manipulative circumstances. Leo never showed up to the hearing. He'd already left the state. Brenda went back to her family without him. Cora didn't smile when she heard that. She didn't laugh. She just exhaled, long, slow, like something had been holding its breath inside her, and it could finally let go. She didn't move back in, though. Too many memories, too many ghosts of quiet betrayals and Sunday brunches that now felt like rehearsals for an exit. Instead, she took her money, her full, untouched inheritance, and did something no one expected. She bought 3 small properties in different parts of the city. Not grand ones, not flashy, just enough. She turned them into transitional housing for young adults over 18 who had been displaced, abandoned, or struggling to find their footing after leaving foster care. She named the little program David's Haven after her late partner. Said it was the kind of thing he would have done if he'd lived long enough to retire. The first resident was a young woman named Maya, 19 years old, kicked out by her guardian when she couldn't work full-time anymore. The second was Daniel. His own family sold his rooming house while he was in a program for addiction recovery. Cora cooked Sunday meals for them all. Sometimes they watched movies. Sometimes they just sat on the porch and swapped stories about who hurt them and who they survived. Cora never needed to explain her story. They saw it in the way she carried herself, calm, steady, unapologetic. Sam still visited now and then, especially when paperwork piled up. He joked about putting her on a billboard, the woman who turned betrayal into a blueprint. Cora would laugh and wave him off. I just did what my instincts told me. You don't fold when you're cornered. You reflect, you plant your feet, and you protect your peace. But Cora knew the fight wasn't about an apartment. It was about not letting a single act of betrayal define the life she built with her bare hands. 1 year later, Cora sat on the back porch of David's Haven with a cup of herbal tea and a warm blanket over her lap. The sky above the city was streaked with lavender and rose, the kind of sunset that made silence feel like a gentle melody. Maya was upstairs studying. Daniel was in the kitchen humming to himself while he prepared a simple meal. And Cora, for the first time in a long while, felt still. Not busy, not angry, not hurt, just still. A letter came in the mail that morning. No return address, just her name written in handwriting she hadn't seen in almost a year. Inside was a note. I messed up. I see that now. I don't know why I did it the way I did. Maybe I thought I was owed something. Maybe I just never understood what you gave me. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say it. You didn't deserve what I did. I hope you're okay. Leo? Cora read it twice. Then she folded it neatly and placed it in the back of her journal. Not because she planned to forget, but because some things are meant to be remembered without being relieved. She didn't write them back. She didn't need to. Forgiveness to her wasn't about letting him off the hook. It was about freeing herself from the grip of what he'd done. She knew something now that she hadn't known then. You can love someone fully, guide them right, give them your everything, and still lose them. Not because of who you were, but because of who they chose to be. And that's not your shame to carry. Cora leaned back in her chair as the city's evening sounds began to rise. She closed her eyes and breathed deep. The kind of breath that fills more than lungs. It filled my memory. It has a meaningful meaning. A home wasn't just a roof. It was the people under it. And she had built a new one from scratch. No paperwork needed.